weren't you on that podcast where Bryan Johnson stood up and went because he just couldn't take it?
Just a PR campaign.
Bryan Johnson is saying he's reversed his age by 15 years. He looks as young as his son.
No, absolutely not. He does not.
Internet doctors can't be trusted, can they?
I think nobody should be trusted point blank.
In India, the problem is that people who look fit aren't really fit. These are young people who go to the gym but are getting heart attacks in their 30s and their 40s.
You know how many of those deaths happen in the gym? Those are a handful of deaths. But nobody's talking about those deaths. We don't show people sitting in their toilet seats and dying of heart attacks. But that's almost 50 to 60% of the people who die of heart attacks that die in their homes.
What keeps you away from GLP-1?
Nobody's asking for a longitudinal study in Indians. Why do we have to become lab rats?
Why do you think Serena Williams has endorsed GLP-1?
I mean, it's her company.
Her husband's.
I mean, you should never trust American products and brands because they are really good at marketing. There are much better countries to learn from. China has increased their average height by almost 8 centimeters, where India has actually reduced it by 1 centimeter.
It's put right here. You know who I'm talking about, right? You've had your own thoughts on Deepinder Goyal's startup.
I'm sorry, where's the proof? This whole longevity thing is basically a narrative. They are sending notifications at night that ask people to eat chole bhature.
What are your thoughts on Temple?
Biggest problem with Deepinder Goyal's hypothesis.
I'm shocked you're saying it. All right. Hello and welcome to Doctor vs. Internet. JC, how are you doing? This is your, I think, trip to Delhi has happened after very long, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And how is the hawa?
Well, so far so good. I haven't fallen sick, so that's a positive, I guess.
Yeah. These Bangaloreans and Delhiites have this constant thing going on, aapka traffic, hamari hawa. Are you feeling it at all, or do you think it's just been like hyped up so far? You've just been lucky to get like at a time when it's been very windy.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell the difference. It feels the same. Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, all the places have similar AQIs and similarly bad traffic. In fact, honestly, I used to boast about Pune being like a cleaner place, but now
not anymore.
Not anymore. You see 200 AQI hitting almost every other day. So,
yeah.
Yikes.
Oh, 1 second. Weren't you on that podcast where Bryan Johnson stood up and went because he just couldn't take it? So your lungs are the problem, JC, because his lungs clearly were getting the bad AQI and you were okay. Go back. Tell me a little bit about what happened then.
I mean, look, it was like just a PR campaign.
Is it?
It was. I mean, the AQI in Mumbai has been bad for a while, and it's not like Bryan just came to Mumbai. He went to different cities, and he was comfortable in all the air. He even came to Delhi, I guess.
But he carried his air purifier everywhere.
So he did on Nikhil's podcast too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
he got like one air purifier with him.
So the idea was that he wanted to make a big statement on a big podcast. So it was like we got to know much later when it made the headlines and everything that was being done deliberately. So, I mean, sure, it was a PR attempt. Not saying that the air wasn't bad, it still is, but that particular incident with Bryan Johnson, that was like a PR attempt.
Really?
Yeah.
But air quality deserves all that attention, don't you think?
It does.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You are known as one of those people who are very vocal online and calling out a lot of beep, a lot of BS, a lot of stuff that internet floats around. Start by telling me, in your own journey, what has really irked you the most when it comes to health information online?
Well, I think the harm that it causes to people on their health journeys, that's one of the worst things that can happen. And the fact that a lot of people, completely ignore The fact, like, if you're causing harm knowingly or unknowingly, you got to acknowledge it. But now the world we live in is like people are causing harm every single day, but they don't even acknowledge it. In fact, they double down on it because they are getting benefits out of it at the cost of other people.
Yeah.
So I think that irks me the most. I'm like, hey, why are you doing something that you wouldn't do to your own family?
But a lot of doctors are also now getting into endorsements, getting into brands. I mean, it's a little baffling because you expect something coming out of a doctor to be foolproof.
Yeah.
But now it's come to a point that even internet doctors, as the name goes, can't be trusted, can they?
I think nobody should be trusted point blank. Everybody should be trusted based on their track record, based on the evidence they provide. So this is something that I keep telling everybody, that nobody should be blindly trusted. Nobody means nobody. Not the politicians, not the businessmen, not the doctors, nobody. I tell everybody, don't even trust me. I ask for evidence. If you can't present evidence, just don't trust.
Who do you trust? Who do you follow online?
I don't trust anyone.
Anyone?
Like,
Come on, there must be some people
there are people who are trustworthy in a sense that they have consistently given good evidence, but even in those people, you can see a glimpse of biasness. And it is a problem with humans in general. We are all biased. And so you cannot completely eliminate bias. So when it comes to a matter of trust, I wouldn't call it trust. I would say that I believe them 80% or 90%. It's never 100%. Yeah.
So it's like that. You don't idolize someone.
No.
And it has to be certain aspects of certain personalities.
Yes.
And thus certain sort of advice or knowledge coming out of certain podcasts and certain people.
Yes.
Give me your top 5 maybe on people you think are making sense online.
So I'd say Lane Norton would be number 1. Then you have Dr. Andrea Love. She's a scientist, immunologist, amazing person. Then you have Menno Henselmans, Dr. Stuart Phillips. In India, you have Krish Ashok, Masala Labs. I like his content. Then you have Liverdoc, Dr. Abby Phillips. He's pretty good. I mean, there's so many. I mean, I can keep on going. Then Dr. Lauren. I mean, I can go on. Like if you go to my Instagram, you'd see most of the people I follow are scientists and, like credible people. Yeah.
Right. But you are not a doctor. You've got your PhD though, right?
No.
Not even that. So what makes you the expert?
Well, I've never claimed to be an expert, to be very honest. I look at the evidence and I present the evidence. I have the necessary background because I have learned each of these subjects. So I understand immunology, I understand physiology, I understand biochem, I understand genetics, and I understand pharmacology. And I'm doing my GHLP, which is Global Healthcare Leaders Program from Harvard. It's a hybrid program. It's online and offline. So being a businessman, I never really formally got into things, but I study every single day. And even though I don't have a formal degree in any of these subjects, but I do understand these subjects, which shouldn't be restricted by just a certificate or a degree. Like knowledge shouldn't be judged on a piece of paper. And while all of that is extremely important in a country like India, I'm just saying that there could be exceptions and that could be made, especially if somebody is making sense. So like, basically there's a saying, you look at the message and don't shoot the messenger. So as long as I'm making sense and everything is evidence-backed and could be fact-checked, it doesn't matter whether I have a degree or not.
Very fascinating, because everything that you've mentioned, from immunology to biochemistry to a lot of other stuff, I feel doctors of today are not really trained for that, are they? We live in times when doctors know what to do once a disease has already hit you, but not so much about how to prevent. Do you think that's where the next big leg of development, what many call wellness industry now, is going to be?
So there's something called as learning something because you have to pass an exam, and there's something called as understanding something because you're just fascinated by it, right? So it's not true that doctors don't learn these subjects. Actually, these subjects are part of their first and second year curriculum. So they have, your physiology, biochem, to some extent genetics. And they learn all of these things. But then after the third and fourth year, which is they start doing their specialization and, more towards the medical side of things, that's where they lose touch with some of these subjects, I would say. Similarly, like how in engineering, we did this thing called Foundry and engineering graphic in the first and second year. We don't really care about it because at the end of the day, you're a software engineer. You have to deal with software. So in a similar manner, when doctors have to deal with sick people, they only care about treating sick people. And that involves using medicine. And the concept of preventive healthcare does not exist.
Yeah.
And it has definitely created a huge gap because people no longer want to be treated when they're sick. They're like, hey, I don't want to get sick.
Yeah.
And so this gap as being filled by people who claim to be influencers, people who claim people don't need doctors, health coaches, businesses like ours. And so this gap is being filled by a variety of people. Now, not all of those people are legitimate. Right? So that's where the problem happens.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to understand. Do you think doctors today in India and across the world, of course, are trained to treat you once you're inside the hospital? They are not really trained to keep you outside the hospital.
That is correct.
And do you think that is where fundamentally we're going wrong in our healthcare ecosystem?
Yes, and there's data to back it up. If you see the countries which have a prominent preventive healthcare system and where incentives are aligned towards keeping people healthy, they do much better. So you see all the Nordic countries, you see countries like Japan where preventive healthcare is focused on more. The government has passed laws such as the Metabo law, which prohibits people to have a waist above 33 inches. And if the waist goes above that, the employer has to make sure they pay for getting that waist down.
One second. Tell me about this again. There is a law to keep your waist in check?
Yes. It's called the Metabo law. It was passed in Japan, I think, in 2008. And it says that if your waist is above 33 inches, your employer has to spend to make sure that the waist goes down.
How?
Apart from that, also they have annual health checkups, which are preventive care checkups.
Yeah.
So a lot of things. And it's also become part of their culture and built culture. So doctors are also not incentivized to write prescriptions. In the case of US, for example, you get paid based on your CPT codes, which are linked to the extent of the treatment or the medicine you're prescribing. So the more expensive the treatment, the more money a doctor gets. These are CPT codes and can be verified easily by anybody. So for example, if you, as a patient, you come to a doctor writes you an expensive treatment. Depending on how expensive the treatment is, how extensive the treatment is, the doctor gets a commission for that. The same applies to medicine. And to some extent, India also follows the similar system.
I was just going to come to India. Japan actually has a very nice ecosystem even for kids in nutrition. They start teaching them what to eat right, and they eat a lot of local seasonal stuff even in schools. And that starts very early. And I think that's the foundation for any good sort of, healthy nutrition or sort of nutritionist well-being, if one can call it that, right? But compare that to India.
Well, in
what
India,
are we getting wrong fundamentally?
Pretty much everything. I mean, there's no concept of nutrition as such. Because also for a very long period of time, India was a country which had very high infant mortality rates, right? So the government's first priority was getting people enough food, never about nutritious food. And so even if you look at the current policies of the government, like the midday meal programs, there's no talk about protein, there's no talk about micronutrients, it's just food. Like any nutrition expert would look at the food and they'd be like, okay, this is not a food that's going to help Indians grow their height or help children become better sportsmen, better athletes. That's not the food you should be giving to your kids. I mean, these are government-sponsored programs, right? So you'd see some thought would have gone behind creating these midday meals. Doesn't seem like it.
There are eggs and all there though. A lot
Really?
of controversially put, but there
I've
are
not
eggs.
come across midday meal programs where the government is talking about giving them eggs. If anything, I've come across more criticism about how we should not be consuming eggs. I mean, at least in the current government, I feel the government is anti-eggs and everything. So I don't think they are giving eggs in the midday meal programs.
So what do we need to, we spoke about a lot of stuff that is going wrong.
Yeah.
Tell me, how can we sort out our nutritional needs and start by maybe giving me from childhood to adulthood, because that's the foundation, right?
Well, there's already an established playbook which a lot of countries have applied, and the best example would be China. Because you see, China also had poor genetics like the rest of the South Asian countries. But if you see in the last 100 years, China has increased their average height by almost 8 centimeters, where India has actually reduced it by 1 centimeter. And if you look at the protein intake for average Chinese citizen, it comes to be around 72 to 75 grams and sometimes even 80. Well, in India, it's still hovering around 50, 60%. And again, we can also talk about how these numbers are derived, because the way these numbers are derived, because I went through the research, the way they derive these numbers in India, the government is saying, hey, we are, like Indians are consuming 60 grams of protein. The way they derive these numbers is basically they look at the amount of ration a family of 4 has bought. And then basis that they estimate, okay, so if somebody has bought, let's say, 1 kg rice for this month, this is how much protein they might have gotten from this. Yeah. So it's a very poor way of estimating protein consumption in India.
Yeah, but there is so much talk about protein. You are saying protein is directly linked to height. You're saying protein is directly linked into development overall and also nutritional values. But we are in this time where protein is both hype and protein is also a curse. We are flooded with protein brands in the country which are A, adulterated, B, doesn't really cut it. Our guts can't take it. It's not designed for an Indian gut biome, or maybe say North Indian, South Indian separately, because we are complicated that way. I think people are confused. They find understanding protein very, very tedious. Is there a good way to understand protein without becoming a gym bro and drinking protein powder all day long?
Again, I've been very vocal about how protein was completely misunderstood, and largely because it was used by gym bros. So everybody thinks protein is like some sort of like a gym bro thing. In reality, protein is just essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. Essential amino acids your body can't make, so you need them. Your entire body is actually made up of protein. And if your body doesn't get protein, it can't build the structures or tissues. Even a small baby, right out of your mother's womb, when they drink breast milk, what does it have? It has whey and it has casein. Without the protein, the baby can't grow. And over a period of time, what happens when the kid is taking your mother's milk? The kid is getting the right kind of nutrition. But the minute the kid is off mother's milk, we start feeding them crap, which has like low protein. Then you have high in fats, high in carbs, and processed foods. And so if I have to see, we have to understand that 90% of the development for a kid happens in the first 5 years. And by the age of 10, almost all the development has happened, like brain development, right? So, and during this time, there's exponential growth that happens in your in your brain. Like your body has to produce lots of neurons. And all of your organs are also fully developed by that time, by the age 10. And so what is the difference between, let's say, a Chinese kid or an Indian kid at the age of 10? We are not talking about stress. We are not talking about extensive exercise. So what is it that's making the difference? I mean, the weather is largely the same. So what's making the difference? It's the food. And in food, what is it, that one thing that makes somebody grow or not grow?
But like I said, protein is very complicated. To understand it, to measure it in an Indian diet, I mean, a lot of us who now are protein aware have to keep clicking pictures and send it to ChatGPT to calculate the amount of protein there. That it just, like I said, it's not easy. Do you have a playbook that people can follow to have a protein-rich diet or a protein-sufficient diet?
Yeah, it's very simple. You stick to whole grains, cereals. You look at lean sources of meat. You can look at chicken. You can look at eggs. Any kind of seafood. All of this is good. The idea is that you don't have to consume a lot of protein. And for this, you don't even have to take a lot of supplements. The idea is that of your total calories, protein has to be 15 to 20%. Right now, that's not happening.
But how do I calculate that on my plate?
No, the
and
government will have
I'm
to.
not somebody who has a battery of people telling them what to do.
Yeah.
We are working people who have houses and kids and office and, bosses and a lot of other things to manage. In my very busy schedule, how do I manage my protein intake?
Look, grains are good for you. Soy products are good for you. Then you have meat products, poultry, egg, seafoods. These are all high protein foods. So when you consume food more from these groups, you automatically get more protein.
But how do I know what's sufficient, what's not? Like calculating per weight, per
okay.
your kg.
So that way, the government has published a guideline. So NIN guidelines, the ICMR guidelines, and those guidelines are available for public in different languages. So it's a huge 200, 300 page document. But there's also miniature versions of them that exist. I would urge everybody to go through the guidelines. So it has a clear pyramid which says first you have to have more fruits and vegetables, then you have to have grains and whole foods, then you have to have lean meat and eggs and poultry and these sources, and then on top it says a little bit amount of saturated fat and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. If somebody is taking protein supplements, since there is so much of fad out there, is there a filter that one can apply to know what is good, what is bad, what is just no-go?
I'd say ask everybody for a lab report for every batch. I think there are very few brands in the country that are actually publishing batch-wise lab reports. If there are brands which are publishing those reports, you can trust those brands. And if the brands are not publishing, lab reports batch-wise, that means that these guys are cutting corners.
Right. And what about this additional protein, high protein atta, high protein eggs, high protein bars, high protein curd, milk which has more protein, additional protein? How do we make sense of all of this?
Right, so there are processes. For example, high protein atta is actually a pretty good idea, because it's staple. So one of the things that people have realized historically is that taking protein supplements are highly, highly processed. And so it does not work well with people's gut also, right? So people are moving towards high protein foods, which are way more palatable because they taste okay. And then because they also come with other things like fiber and everything else, they are far more easier on people's stomach, right? So high protein atta, for instance, they make it using either a soy flour, a mix of wheat flour and groundnut flour. And right now we have techniques which can defatten these flours, which means that removes the fat layer. And so you have the protein and carbohydrate layer. And so this defattening process is how you can make anything high protein. So for example, defatted milk typically has higher protein. Defatted yogurt typically has higher protein. So defattening is a pretty standard process which has existed for a couple of decades now. And so now it's coming to India. So that's a good thing.
What do I tell my mother and my uncles who say कि ये protein fad तुम्हारी generation का है? This is not how we grew up. हम तो दाल चावल रोटी सब्जी खा के पैदा हुए and we never had an issue.
Of course they had issues. They're walking, they can't even walk properly. Hospitals live on so many concurrent medications. Of course they're having issues. They're just living in denial. How many of 60-year-olds from their generation are actually fit and healthy? Not. I mean, if they were really fit and healthy, why was India's lifespan is 67, 68? So living in denial just because they are feeling fine 6 months out of the year, that's not something I would say supports their stance that they're healthy and doing everything right. They're not. I mean, I'm way more fitter than my parents ever were. At my age, I'm 40. I'm pretty sure you're in your late 30s, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that people don't believe you that, right? So when you tell them I'm in late 30s, people won't believe you because you look way more fitter and stronger and you go to the gym. So if you look at us, people like us, we are already way more fitter and stronger than our parents ever were. Even in their 20s and 30s, we are more fitter now. So I think they're just saying that to please themselves, but it's absolutely not true.
But how do you define fitness? Like India has this phenomena called thin fat, right?
Yeah.
A lot of our parents' generation specifically, they have something called visceral fat, which is really detrimental, which is why it brings down age and other complications, etc. They don't really look fat. But in India, the problem is that people who look fit aren't really fit. These are young people who go to the gym but are getting heart attacks in their 30s and their 40s. And people who don't really look aesthetically pleasing could actually have better markers. So I have a confused vision of what is fitness.
Yeah. No, look, again, fitness and health, they go hand in hand, and one does not necessarily isolate from the other. Now, the problem could be that people can look fit, but then they are not really fit. That can happen. But largely when people are fit, they are also healthy. Now, for example, a person like me, I have hepatitis B along with my brother since we were kids, right? So even though we are fitter and my blood markers and every other marker is perfectly fine, but compared to a normal person who does not have hepatitis B, I'm at a much higher risk of liver cirrhosis when I get older, right? So that could be the case. So people do have genetic issues without their any kind of lifestyle problems. They could have genetic issues, right? So that does not mean that those people are not fit or it's not worthy enough for them to try. Because imagine for someone like me, if I was drinking and smoking, I'd be in much worse health compared to somebody who was drinking and smoking without hepatitis B.
Yeah.
Right, so there's that. The another thing is, again, sometimes even media plays a big role in highlighting cases, like somebody dies in the gym. But you know how many of those deaths happen in the gym? Like you can count them on hands. Like the celebrity deaths or people dying in the gym, those are handful of deaths. How many people actually die of heart attacks in India every single year? 30 lakh people. But nobody's talking about those deaths. We don't show people sitting in their toilet seats and dying of heart attacks. But that's almost 50 to 60% of the people who die of heart attacks and die in their homes, doing nothing. And we show a couple of dozens of deaths which are happening. So they're very small compared to the number of people dying at home.
Okay, we've covered a lot of fundamentals on health, on nutrition, on fitness, but I want to get down to some specifics now.
Sure.
The world at the moment is calling us the GLP-1 generation. Okay, celebrities world over, entrepreneurs, politicians, athletes like Serena Williams have endorsed it. You have had a very strong point of view that we should stay as far away from GLP-1 as possible. Clearly, India is not listening to you because it became the highest selling drug.
Yeah.
So what are we not understanding about GLP-1? What is your specific sort of, what keeps you away from GLP-1?
Well, we had an opportunity to become part of this back in 2023 when some of my known folks, they started using GLP-1 because we train a lot of people. And so we thought, okay, this is interesting. And so we looked at it. And then as I kept learning about them, reading more about them, I figured that this could not be good because one of the, the problem with any medication which has impact, which has a systemic impact in your entire body and it's not targeted, are always dangerous. And by this, basically, I'll explain you what it means. So in your body, you have an endogenous hormone called GLP-1, which your body releases in response to, carbohydrates or, your fat or protein intake. And that gives you the feeling of satiety. Now, this GLP-1, if it was only restricted to your intestines or, let's say, your pancreas or your abdomen, it wouldn't be a problem. The problem is this GLP-1 receptors, they are also expressed in different parts of your body. So your brain, your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, all of these places you have GLP-1 receptors. So when you are taking in any exogenous hormone, so in this case you have GLP-1 RA or receptor agonist, when you take them, they are not just attaching themselves to GLP-1 receptors in your abdomen or your pancreas or intestine. They're attaching themselves to every other place. And so these are called off-tissue side effects. And so that's why when you have host of problems which seem very counterintuitive. For example, there was a recent meta-analysis which came out in November, which said that GLP-1 receptors agonists are linked to chronic cough. People must be thinking, what? How's that possible? Like, why would a weight loss drug be linked to chronic cough? But then you read into the whole pharmacology of how these drugs work, and you realize that your lungs also have GLP-1 receptors. And so it's entirely possible. Similarly, one of the worst things that happens is when you apply these drugs in the context of Indian population, which already has low muscle mass and does not go to the gym, has very bad affinity towards protein. These drugs are known to cause huge muscle loss. Most of the researchers that have showed 30 to 40% of lean muscle loss. That's a lot. And muscles are your biggest sink for glucose disposal. Without adequate muscle mass, you are susceptible to all sorts of metabolic problems. And so if you blindly just make this drug available to all the Indians, and you know how regulation in India works, with no pharmacovigilance, no regulatory body, imagine the Indians start taking these drugs, less than 1% of Indians go to the gym. So these drugs are going to cause not only muscle loss, but also because Indians don't go to the gym, they don't take protein, it is also going to increase the risk of frailty or fractures, and which is also a rising issue in many of the people who are like 50 and above in India. So I'm thinking, and we are not even covering the serious side effects, like for example, pancreatitis, gastroparesis, the thyroid cancer risk and all of those things. And you know that the Australian health body, they also flag these drugs for potential suicidal tendencies.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm saying that all the countries, they are publishing different regulations against these drugs and putting up a proper pharmacovigilance framework and regulatory frameworks. Why isn't India doing that? Do we even have a single longitudinal study done in Indians for these drugs? Like, is it too much to ask for, let's say, getting a 2-year, 3-year longitudinal study done on Indians when you're planning to give these drugs to millions of Indians? That's how it works. I'm not even saying that. I mean, that's the law. We tested the COVID vaccine in Indians. That was the law. We could not have the same AstraZeneca vaccine. We could not have the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. We created our own vaccines. That was the law. So how is that now the law has changed? Now we are importing these drugs and nobody's asking for a longitudinal study in Indians. Why do we have to become lab rats to this experiment?
But I don't see a lot of doctors sound the same alarm. The doctors are sounding alarm when it comes to weight loss drugs on misuse, on saying that it's going to the wrong candidates, right? But they are not perhaps sounding the alarm so much on the long-term impact of GLP-1. Why do you think they are not saying it?
Yeah, because the milder versions of these drugs like liraglutide and exenatide have been in circulation for a while, and they've been used for doctors for quite some time. Now, what they failed to recognize at the earlier versions of these drugs had a very small half-life period where the drug was in the body for a couple of hours or maybe a day. So people used to take these drugs orally or intravenously on a daily basis. But those drugs were not that potent. Now these drugs, they stay in the body for up to 7 days, 8 days, and the new version of the drugs will stay in the body for 7, 15, and even 30 days. So the way a drug functions, like you cannot extend the same risk-benefit profile of a drug based on the earlier, milder versions of the same drug. The doctors are doing that mistake.
But then, I get your point. A lot of this has been flagged earlier as well. Then why do you think the most informed people on the planet, athletes, for whom their body, their fitness is everything, who have a battery of people taking care of their nutrition, their muscle, their muscle mass, their protein intake. They have a full-fledged professional team only to take care of how they eat and how they feel. Why do you think Serena Williams has endorsed GLP-1?
I mean, it's her company.
Her husband's investment.
Yeah. So people have to understand that there's various incentives, motives, and when athletes do get retired, they do undertake certain kinds of endorsements. And I'm not going to hold them accountable for that, but at least it's up to us, because if Virat Kohli is going to sell whatever chips, it doesn't make him an expert on nutrition. So, and similarly, so many celebrities do so many endorsements, but that does not make them an expert on that subject. Neither does the endorsement mean that that's actually the right thing for somebody to do. So Serena Williams is just one of the cases where she has a huge conflict of interest here. It's her company, and the company's name is Roe, I guess.
Yeah.
So she is the board member. And so, of course, you have to put skin in the game, and you have to show people that I'm taking it, and that just opens up the gates for everybody. See, one of the things that people have to realize that you should never trust American products and brands, because they are really good at marketing. And I think you do a mistake if you follow the same playbook as America. There are much better countries to learn from. There are much better countries that actually take care of their people and not driven by extreme capitalism than America.
Like Europe?
I'd say Japan. I'd say some parts of Europe, yes. I'd say even China. But I would not say US. US is probably the worst example of a nation that any nation should follow. Like, there's this series called The Boys, and there's a character called the Homelander. That's actually the US. They're not Superman. They're the Homelander.
Okay, let me move on to some Indian brands now, and let me move on to some stuff that is happening in India. India is also in the middle of a lot of health tech. You have a brand, you're wearing it as well, right? We, at least 1% in the country at the moment, or perhaps a lot of people watching this podcast, have one health gadget or the other these days. They have an Apple Watch, or they'll have a ring, or they'll be calculating how much they sleep, how much they walk, how much their stress levels are, good sleep, bad sleep, etc. I want to understand your take on this, because I think there is now developing, having been in this stage, in this health tech fitness stage, post-pandemic for about half a decade now, I feel there's now a fatigue setting in. People are saying this too much tracking is happening, and it's doing not what it's meant to do in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
What's your take on tracking every marker in your body?
Again, so there could be extremes in everything, right? We have a paper from Lancet 2023 where they suggested that wearable devices have a meaningful use in health, and that using trackers can produce clinically significant results. So this is Lancet meta-analysis based on some 200 odd studies, right? So having said this, some people can find the data overwhelming. And so you have to fine-tune that balance. Like, I'm not constantly looking at my ring. I'm not constantly looking at my phone and measuring my levels every hour. That probably is too much. And that's where people go, like, it's like looking at your bank balance every hour, saying how much money I have left. I think it's the same. So just you have to achieve that balance. If you're not looking at your bank balance every few hours or every hour, and you're okay, then I think it's okay to look at your health data, not every hour, but once in a while. The problem happens in both the extremes, when you're too obsessed with the data, and the other extreme is when you don't care about the data at all. If somebody says, I'm sleeping well, how do you know? If you don't know if you're sleeping well or not, how can you fix it? So you have to have some baseline. Some people say, oh, I exercise, oh, I'm good. They've never done a blood test, and suddenly they drop dead. People are like, he looked fit, he was absolutely fine, right? And then, we come across people who get surprised and shocked. The minute they get their blood reports done for the first time, they're like, oh, I thought I was healthy. And when they get their DEXA and they're like, oh, I didn't know I had so much of visceral fat. Right? And then what happens is any of these chronic disease, they don't develop in a day. Like, for example, a CVD or a diabetes or let's say insulin resistance, these are like 5 years, 10 years in the making, unless it's some sort of a genetic predisposition. Even in that case, they get worsened over a period of time, right? So a lot of people can't tell if they're facing any issues until it gets to a point, point of spillover. Like, for example, you keep putting some water in this glass and you won't know until there's a spillover. So same thing happens in the human body. You will not notice any symptoms for a very long time. And people use that as an excuse to not get their baselines measured.
But talking about tracking, a lot of people in the country do track, but they take these packages that come from any of these companies which say that we'll do your annual checkup, etc. Do you think that also needs an update now? What we've been tracking, your basic blood markers, etc., don't hold anymore.
I mean, it depends on how much one is willing to spend. Because a simple HbA1c test could be done in, let's say, 100, 200 rupees. With delivery, maybe around 300 rupees. They'll collect your blood at home and give you HbA1c. That's such a good standard marker that can reveal so much about your metabolic health. So I'm saying that testing could be done for as less as 100, 200, 300 rupees. But at the same time...
But is that enough? Just doing your HbA1c?
I'm saying, how about let's get HbA1c done for the entire country first? And then maybe we can talk about what else can be tested. Like right now, do we even know how many people are diabetic in the country? We have estimates from 2015, 2016. What about afterwards? We have to have these estimates. And again, estimates couldn't be done with like a single prevalence study in a state, because these are also regional things. Right? So you can't conduct a survey of 200, 300 odd people and ask them, oh, if you're diabetic or not, and then conclude, oh, this is the prevalence. That's not how you assess baseline. Right now, I'm thinking that India might have 100 million diabetics. But again, this is some prevalence data from some 5, 6, 10 years back. We don't have current estimates.
Okay, so if I am conscious about what's happening to my body, if I'm also conscious of my genetic makeup, what are the kind of tests and also wearable devices that I should be looking at? What should I be tracking and what should I be testing?
Right. So every organ in your body that can fail and fails easily should be tracked. Like, for example, I would love to do extensive testing for heart, because heart is really vulnerable. I wouldn't worry too much about liver until I have lifestyle issues or let's say a problem like hepatitis B or C or A, right? I wouldn't worry too much about, let's say, my skin or hair or nail, because these are secondary organs, right? Which do not, like, your body does not depend on them for survival. Like, you can still survive, right? I wouldn't worry too much about, let's say, my muscle mass until you're in a country like India. So depending on where you're staying. Like, for example, if you're staying in a place like Delhi, I would put more stress on testing my lungs and my heart.
Oops.
Yes. Versus, let's say, if I was living in South Indian states, where I'd actually focus more on testing my muscle mass. Because the prevalence of insulin resistance, obesity is far more down south compared to the north, I guess. So depending on the region, depending on the place, but in general, I would say everybody should get extensive profiling done for their heart, because that's the one thing that can quickly take you away.
Right.
Yeah.
And is there a way, do you have like a checklist of things that you should do in your 30s, in your 20s?
Sure.
Is there one that you can tell us?
Yeah, so you can get your vitamins and minerals. You could get your liver profile, which is LFT. Then you have kidney function tests. There's this KFT, vitamin D levels. Again, good to have a baseline, because Indians typically are deficient in vitamin D. Calcium, iron, zinc, magnesium for women. Then you have your thyroid test, especially important for women. Hormone test for both men and women. Then you can check your spirometry test, which is primarily for lungs. Nobody does it, but it's important. Then you can get your DEXA once in a life at least, especially after the age of 30 to assess your baseline. Then if you can get a VO2 max test done. And then a lot of tests for your heart. So in your heart, you have lipid profile, you have your ApoE-B, then ApoA, A-B, then LPA, which is again also determined by your genetic marker. And then you have CAC, then you have, I wouldn't say MRI-CT, but it's good to do.
That sounds like a very exhaustive list.
I mean, look,
I don't think that's practical.
You know, when you send a car to a service center, they check each and everything in your car, and then they provide a certificate that's okay, this is fine. So we do it for our cars. We have to do it for the bodies. You know, we have to do it. And think not as an individual owner of the car. Of course, you don't give a shit about your car except for washing it, cleaning it from outside, but you do drive it, right? And when you get a little bit of scratch and this and that, you know, you do send it for a repair and maintenance. But when you send the car for a regular service, the regular service means that they'll check each and every part of the body, and then they'll certify the car is fit for driving, or if something's wrong with the engine.
VO2 max is a buzzword. I'm seeing it all across my Instagram. In fact, on the issue of longevity, VO2 max is said to be one of those markers that actually tell you how long you're going to live. Explain what is VO2 max.
So VO2 max is basically your maximal oxygen uptake during high intensity training. People respond to stress much better when their VO2 max is higher. Two people with, let's say, one having a much better VO2 max, let's say something above their 40s and 50s, versus somebody in their 20s and 30s, the chances of this person dying of a heart attack is way more compared to this person. Right. So basically, VO2 max is one of the, it's a good proxy for longevity. It's not so the way all of these markers are derived, for example, grip strength, VO2 max, lean mass, the way they derive these markers is that they have user data of hundreds of thousands of users. And what they do is they find out, so this is all done retrospectively, not prospectively. So in retrospect, they find out, okay, this user lived till the age of 90. Find out what was a common thing amongst all these users who lived till 90. And they're like, oh, all of these guys had like really good VO2 max, right? So that's how they say. So these are proxies. So it's basically, we observe a common theme amongst people who lived longer, and they found out that VO2 max single-handedly was one of the most common denominator amongst all the people who lived longer.
Yeah, but okay, give me your longevity markers. What would you track to know not just lifespan, but health span of a person?
Yeah, I mean, VO2 max is definitely there. Then your lean mass. Yeah. Then your resting heart rate. These three are like pretty good.
Grip strength also, you said.
It's a proxy for strength. So again, because they cannot measure the strength or lean mass, so they use a small device which you can like grip. So that gives you some indication of how strong a person is. But it's a proxy.
Just an indication, you mean?
It's an indication for overall strength.
Okay.
So if you don't have to do grip strength, you can actually do your deadlift and see if you can comfortably lift, 1x of your body weight. It's the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
We spoke about markers, but on devices, I want to know. I think we are tracking too much. And there are those who are afraid of tracking. And then the other side of the spectrum is who are just obsessed with tracking. What is the balance then between the two sides?
Like I said, tracking does not need to become obsessive. I mean, look, first people need to understand that none of these devices actually calculate stuff. None of these devices, the Apple Watch, the heart ring, or any of the devices, they don't calculate stuff. They estimate stuff.
Meaning?
Meaning, like a medical device is a pretty extensive setup. For example, if I have to do my sleep assessment in the lab, there's going to be a PhD device, polysomnography, which will have like different leads, which I'll have to attach here in my nose, in my mouth. It's a big equipment. Similarly, if I have to calculate, let's say heart rate is pretty easy to calculate. You can use that. But again, those devices are also approximating. They are not calculating. Calculation is when you have deterministic physical characteristics and you use physical formulas to estimate something. right? In this case, what happens is you use something called as a regression. So all of these devices, they don't calculate the estimate. So the main purpose of these devices is not to give you accurate values, but trends. So for someone who's looking at accuracy is doing the biggest mistake by not looking at trends and trying to look at the data, and somebody's like, oh, I walked 10,000 steps and this device is showing me 10,050. See, that's the problem. Those are the kind of people who you can say these are obsessed. When you're looking at trends, the trends give you an indication, okay, if your health is getting better or worse. Like, for example, I'm not going to fuss about if I've slept 6 hours, 15 minutes today or 6 hours, 30 minutes tomorrow. But I will see the average, how much I have slept this month. And if my average is okay and it's touching 7.5 hours or 8 hours, I'd say, okay, my health in general is getting better, right? So you look at the trends and basis those trends, you make a decision.
Right. But talking about wearable devices, it's a big market in India now. You have a product of your own.
Yes.
You have Heart, that's what it's called. Yeah. It's a ring. There are several others that are out in the market. And one particular one, which is making a lot of noise, it's put right here. You know who I'm talking about, right? What do you make of this entire temple, as it's being called or speculated so far, because there's no official launch? But I can tell you, in Delhi circles, a lot of people that I meet over dinner or brunches these days, I'm seeing a lot of them wear that little piece here. You've had your own thoughts on Deepinder Goyal's startup.
No, again, look, so I think we have to look at everything at a fundamental level. For 10 years, we are doing the same thing. We are making people healthy. We've stayed away from supplements. We've stayed away from drugs. So there's a philosophy. And people can look at our track record and like, okay, what do these guys do? And I keep myself fit. My whole family is fit. We use the same product. My parents use the same products. When you look at, again, I don't want to get into any legal trouble, but I'm saying that when you have people who are kind of contributing and making people unhealthy, and then the same people come out and start talking about health and well-being, it's not that they cannot. I'm saying then you have to be very careful that it's not setting an agenda or narrative where they want to kind of convince people that they are not making people unhealthy. For example, research funded by an alcohol company or a cancer hospital opened by a smoking company, that sets a dangerous precedent, because in a long enough timeline, they'll be able to prove that smoking does not cause cancer. Or an alcohol company would be able to, produce research which we say, hey, in moderate quantities, wine is actually good for you. And we have those researchers, right? So in a similar manner, a company that does food delivery, quick delivery, and largely responsible for distributing junk food to the masses can, in a way, talk about longevity and health and try to change the agenda, and they'll say, hey, you know what? A food delivery is not a problem. The quick delivery is not a problem. The 1 a.m. notification that asks you to eat chole bhature at night is not a problem. It's your willpower. We are sending those notifications to test your willpower. You see, so that's dangerous. That's my biggest problem with companies like these talking about health and wellness. I'm like, look, do your business, no problem. The minute you enter into health and wellness, everything has to be, and you have to be looking at it from the lens of evidence. My biggest problem with Deepinder Goyal's hypothesis was that hypothesis, first, it was not even his own. This is a theory which has been explored for the last 50 years and has been largely dismissed by the community. And then he talks about evidence-based gravity aging hypothesis. And the second argument in the statement was, look at the people who do Shavasana and they live so long. I'm sorry, where's the proof? He's using Indian culture to further his argument, but that's not how science works.
Yeah, so he did apologize for it.
I mean, sure, but the whole agenda was not an apology, or it wasn't the gravity aging hypothesis.
Oh, you're saying he was forced to apologize?
I mean, sure, why would he do that otherwise? It was, a lot of people went vocal and talked about and ripped apart his gravity aging hypothesis. That's when he realized he did a mistake.
But Deepinder Goyal has gone on record to say that there is no food cooked in his house. He only orders from Zomato. He and his wife both.
Yeah.
And then he also has a longevity startup. And he also has this thing called Temple that he's coming up with to improve
Can he
health.
go on record and say that that food is good for everybody? Can he go on record? Because there's meta-analysis, I can show it to you, that shows that food delivery companies are impacting the minds of young people, and it is making food more and more accessible. They are sending notifications at night that ask people to eat chole bhature. And that's, if you're telling me that's not affecting people's behavior, I'm sorry, I don't believe that. I'm not saying that. There's research that food delivery companies are manipulating people into eating more. There's research, there's data.
Yeah, but what if he's had a awakening and that's why the startup now on health?
Well, I don't know, probably just stop sending the notifications. Not too much to ask for, right? Tell them Zomato will not send any food-related notifications after 9 p.m. How difficult is that? You're ready to put in $25 million in your new longevity startup. You're not ready to lose some money by not sending notifications post 9 p.m. I mean, if people needed food, they'd anyways log in and order food, right? Why send the notifications? So you see my problem? I'm like, anybody can say anything. You have to back it up.
What are your thoughts on Temple, the tracker?
I mean, it's just a device. It's nothing.
You also have just a device.
Yeah, that's
you have one of your own.
Yeah, so I'm not attaching it with gravity aging hypothesis. I'm not saying this device will make you live longer. It's a freaking tracker. That's what it is. So that Temple device is just a tracker. It's not going to improve your longevity. This device is not going to improve my longevity. I'm going on record. I'm telling you, it's just a tracker.
Yeah.
It gives you a baseline. So similarly, whatever device he's making, it's not going to improve your lifespan. It's just a monitoring device, and it will likely do the same thing that the Ring is doing while looking probably weird. That's about it.
You think it's the same thing then? It's the same tracker?
It's the same tracker.
But they claim, so nobody knows what it is, by the way, because it's not public yet.
Yeah, I know what it is, because I've had somebody from the Zomato's team reach out to me and told me that I'm doing great and they know everything about it. So they told me it's the same device. They have the PPG sensors. And basically, it does exactly the same thing that this Ring is doing. On top of this, they are also trademarking this pseudometric called brain flow, which has nothing to do with your actual brain's flow.
Pseudometric?
Yeah, it's a pseudometric brain flow. They have trademarked that metric. So for example, you have VO2 Max, you have HRV, you have resting heart rate. These have been validated metrics for 50 plus years, right? They have invented their own metric called the brain flow.
What is that?
It's just a fancy metric which they'll probably use the same device to calculate, and they'll probably link it to, like he was saying, longevity and everything, like if the flow to the brain. That was the whole hypothesis, right? So their entire hypothesis that people who live longer, they have higher blood flow to the brain, and people who live less longer, they have less cerebrum blood flow, as evident by the researchers. But they are using the researchers, right kind of researchers, and linking with this pseudonym that they have invented, brain flow. So it's basically just, again, if we go technical, this will go very, very technical. So I don't want to get into too technical stuff.
Okay. But I want to understand this. Longevity is probably the buzz. 2026 is said to be one of the years where it will be talked about. Obviously, one of the things that really put it on the map was that hot mic conversation that happened between Putin and Xi Jinping, where they are in China and they're actually discussing how the age of 70 is just like being a baby. They go on to say that all of us are going to live till 150. What they mean is that they're going to rule till 150. But that's a different story. You think longevity seriously is going to be something that everyone, including the most powerful in the world, look at very, very seriously? Bryan Johnson being one of the biggest poster boys for that.
Well, I hope not, because it will be a pathetic and a sad world. I really hope that people just focus on living healthier till the age of 100, which again seems like a pipe dream, to be very honest. I have noticed that there's a trend whenever the world is suffering from problems. A couple of these people, they have the tendency to distract them and start focusing on a new problem so that people get distracted and stop asking for the basic stuff. We've seen this in our political class also, right? So this whole longevity thing is basically a narrative which has been devised by people to like kind of distract people from focusing on basic issues. The basic issues that we are not even getting proper air, water, food, the adulteration. I mean, wasn't Zomato caught up in some adulterated paneer case? Right, so it's very convenient when they talk about longevity and Indians living longer when the average lifespan is 67, 68, and we are not even talking about DALYs. It's just talking about average lifespan, which is derived from your infant mortality. We're not even talking about midlife mortality. Again, having said this, look, longevity in my textbook, it simply means you're living till the age of 100 in a healthy manner. Anybody who sells you this pipe dream that you're going to live to 150, 170, 200 is a snake oil peddler. It simply is not possible. Even the longest living organism, which is your what's this organism? It has like, again,
Hydra?
Hydra, yes. So even Hydra, under lab conditions, can only live for 1400 years. Even the immortal jellyfish is not immortal. They live really long, but they're not immortal. Nothing in this universe is really immortal. We are made up of the same organic matter as the trees, as the stars, as the Hydra. And if the trees have a birth, growth, decay, and death cycle, if the stars have a birth, growth, decay, death cycle, humans are going to have a birth, growth.
But come on, don't
decay,
die.
death cycle.
Exist today. Bryan Johnson is saying he's reversed his age by 15 years. He looks as young as his son. And he does look as young as his son.
No, absolutely not. He does not. He does not. I sat next to him. I was there on the podcast. He does not look younger. He looks his age.
Really?
Yeah, he looks his age. Why would you think otherwise?
Well, he's got pictures of himself and his son next to it. And
I mean, they are both bright-looking white boys, and he has good muscles because he's on TRT. But that's
what is
about
TRT?
As a hormone therapy, testosterone.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but I don't think he looks any younger. Like, compared to that, I would say there are thousands of people in India who look much, much younger. I'm saying you'd probably look better at 50 than he's doing right now at 47. He looks his age.
We should just end this podcast now. I've been told that I will look better than Bryan Johnson does at his age. I think this is it. We should just cut. Everybody go home. Khatam ho gaya.
I'm saying, but that's going to happen to most of the people who are doing regular stuff, which is sleeping right, nutrition, exercising. You don't have to follow any of the things Bryan Johnson is doing. That's just nonsense.
You're saying it's nonsense. He's gone ahead to create a massive community. He's got his own.
He's gone ahead to create $100 million supplement company. Yes, I know that. $100 million supplement company selling unsubstantiated, supplements like NMN, Collagen, and other peptides. So yeah, he's created a $100 million company, and this is all part of selling that.
What about Glucose Goddess? What's your take on her?
Again, let's not get there. Look, again, internet's filled with a lot of extremes. And this is where the problem happens. You have so many extremes. You have Glucose Goddess on one side, you have Bryan Johnson on the other side, and everybody's selling some supplement. Bryan Johnson has created a $100 million supplement enterprise. You don't think that's a problem? You think that his ultimate mission is to save humans and make us all immortal? Really? Is that the agenda? Because right now, the way I see it, $100 million company selling collagen, selling peptides, selling NMN.
So you don't think peptides, collagen, biotin, it works?
Show me human data. I'm asking for evidence. Where's the data? Like
peptides also. Collagen and biotin I get.
Where's the human data? If they work, show me the data. Look, creatine has been around for decades. It has 75,000 published studies. 75,000. How many studies on collagen? There was a recent meta-analysis which concluded that if you remove all the funded studies, you are left with unfunded studies which prove collagen has zero efficacy in humans. And most of the studies that showed differences were primarily just funded studies. How many RCTs in NMN or any of the NAD precursors that shows improvements in mitochondrial efficiency or aging. Guess how many?
No, 1 second. You are saying collagen, biotin, even peptides. That's just making expensive pee. It's not doing anything to your body.
It's not.
Peptides also. I'm shocked you're saying it.
Yeah. There's not enough human data. There's not enough human data, and they're not also safe. Also not safe. There's huge safety issues. There's huge safety warnings which have been flagged around with peptides. It's not human data. That's not FDA approved. They're not approved, and they are largely on the grey market. They're not even regulated.
What about Revant? Food Pharma has done a lot of work.
I love how you just flip from this to this. Okay, interesting.
He now has his own protein powder brand, right?
Yeah.
What do you think of it?
Nothing. I don't talk about products. I don't endorse. He's a friend, but I've not endorsed any of his products.
Why is that? In fact, that's true. I haven't seen you endorse.
Yeah, I don't endorse any products, including our own.
What do you? No, of course you endorse the heart ring.
You'll actually never see me making a video where I'm talking about people should buy a heart ring. That's not been a video. Like me as an individual, you'll not find any kind of endorsement videos on my profile. I've never endorsed a product.
And you think everybody who does has a vicious motive?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I prefer keeping things educational. People trust me to give them the right kind of information. And so, I don't endorse stuff also because historically I've seen that the only person you can trust is your own judgment and not some other branch. And that does not mean that we don't carry out our regular business. We do. But I'm saying when I'm putting something out in the public, I don't typically ask them to buy something or use something because of my inherent biases or any kind of association with the business. I just find that not aligning with my value system. That's all.
Okay, on that note, I have a couple of videos for you.
Sure.
I want you to go through them and tell me, since there is so much advice online, everybody's selling something. Yeah. Sometimes it's also fake news. Yeah. So I want you to go through them and tell us what do you think about them.
Sure.
Okay.
Ghee is the best fat in the world. When I go to US, scientists hug me. You come from a land that has given this world ghee.
Really?
Yes. Ghee is saturated fat, but is not like any other saturated fat. It's a fat burner.
Ghee is a fat burner.
Because it is a property of ghee. It burns away stubborn fat. It reduces your visceral fat.
It's only in ghee कि coconut oil, olive oil in maybe.
Olive oil is short chain fatty acid. Coconut oil has similar properties. But both have great health benefits.
Yeah, garbage. This is not true. We have researches that have been done on ghee, and it found on not just ghee but other saturated fats also. And there's direct research that also suggests that they both increase your LDL cholesterol, which is implicated in case of atherosclerosis and other cardiovascular issues. So, no, ghee is not the best fat. In fact, if you look at the ICMR NIN guidelines, it clearly tells you to avoid ghee and butter.
Yeah, but
and
I read this book called
small quantities.
I read this book called Brain Grain, and it talks about how fat is not the problem, but fat along with carbs is the problem.
I mean, look, we can make any such combinations. We can say protein is not the problem, but protein with water is a problem. But there has to be some logic. Right. So where does the logic come from? The logic comes from meta-analysis. It comes from systematic reviews. It comes from dietary guidelines. Because if everybody starts creating their own logic, then...
But this is the era of ghee. We hated it earlier, and now everybody's obsessed with different kinds of ghee. And there is A2 ghee, and there is Gir Ghai ka ghee, and then Bilona ghee, and God knows what all that is going on.
I don't think we ever hated it. It was always part of our lifestyle. My family still consumes ghee. My wife loves eating ghee. My daughter loves eating ghee. But, we don't say things like...
But you don't?
No, I don't. But we don't say that ghee is a fat burner, So there's this tendency in India where sometimes, we demonize things to an extent and then we kind of glorify them to an extent wherein we don't realize that there's a midway where things can neither be good nor be bad.
And why don't you have ghee?
Well, I tend to have limited fat intake. I don't consume too much fat.
This is calorie in, calorie out?
Yeah.
Dude, is dal a good source of protein? Well, not really. That bowl of dal you're having is about 5 grams of protein. So I would need to eat like 25 of these bowls every single day to hit my daily protein intake. Yup, and it has carbs too. Dal is an incomplete source of protein, which means your body won't absorb all of it. To be practical, don't use dal as a source of protein. You can eat paneer, curd, and chicken instead. Let dal be a source of micronutrients and fiber.
Well, most of it is right, except for one point. It says that the body will not absorb dal. It will absorb dal. It's not a problem. It's not a complete source of protein. That's correct.
I thought it's not a complete protein, so you need to have dal with chawal to make it a complete.
Yes, methionine and lysine, yes. That's fair, but to say that just because you are having dal, your body will not absorb all the amino acids in dal, that's incorrect, but otherwise, pretty good video. Yeah, like dal is predominantly a source of carbohydrates, not protein. Protein is like some 20 to 23 grams per 100 grams. The rest of it is carbohydrates. So it's actually a carbohydrate source, not protein source.
I see. So what about these plant-based diets that go around? We've seen a lot of people, including Novak Djokovic, endorse it. He's written a full book on what really keeps him on the edge. And in that book, and I've read that several times now because it brings out different layers every time, he says that the only difference between him and other tennis players was not his talent, but what was his discipline on food. He said, that's what gave me the edge. They had better talent. I had better fitness.
Sure. Yeah, that's a believable statement. Yeah.
Yeah? You think plant-based diets work that way?
Of course. Based on the researchers, plant-based diets are much, much better compared to an animal-based diet for overall longevity and well-being. So there's that. But then again, like I said, these things are done in retrospective, not prospective. So the data can sometimes be conflated and biased towards certain tendencies, which is also the case here. But in general, I would say plant-based diets are much better than predominantly animal-based diets.
But where do you get your source of protein then from?
In plants also, you have soy, you have quinoa, you have... if you consume dairy, then your entire dairy is source of protein. Vegetarians do consume dairy, right? So there's that. And then apart from that, and then what else? You have plant protein concentrates, which you can use. You have rice protein concentrates. So there are things that you can use.
हम सब बचपन से सुनते आए हैं ब्रेकफास्ट इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट मील ऑफ द डे, ब्रेकफास्ट सबसे हैवी होना चाहिए। सब बकवास। ब्रेकफास्ट में ऐसा कुछ भी स्पेशल नहीं है। आप पूरे दिन में सिर्फ एक मील को इंपॉर्टेंट कैसे बोल सकते हो? अब ये मिथ इसलिए बना क्योंकि कुछ ब्रांड्स ने अपने ब्रेकफास्ट सीरियल्स को प्रमोट करने के लिए ये कैंपेन स्टार्ट किया था कि ब्रेकफास्ट इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट मील ऑफ द डे। और कुछ रिसर्चेज में देखा गया था कि जो लोग ब्रेकफास्ट ईटर्स थे वो ज्यादा हेल्दी थे इन कंपेरिजन टू जो लोग ब्रेकफास्ट स्किप करते थे। बट उन रिसर्चेज में सिलेक्शन बायस था क्योंकि जो लोग ब्रेकफास्ट स्किप कर रहे थे उनकी दूसरी बुरी हैबिट्स थी जैसे स्मोकिंग, अल्कोहल, नो फिजिकल एक्टिविटी। अब मैं ये नहीं बोल रहा हूँ कि आपको ब्रेकफास्ट स्किप कर देना चाहिए। अगर आप एक ऐसे पर्सन हो जिसको सुबह सुबह भूख लगती है और आपका शेड्यूल अलाउ करता है तो हैव योर ब्रेकफास्ट। लेकिन अगर आप एक ऐसे पर्सन हो जिसको सुबह सुबह भूख नहीं लगती तो स्किप योर ब्रेकफास्ट। रिमेंबर, आपकी पूरे दिन की ओवरऑल न्यूट्रिशन ज्यादा मैटर करती है देन वन सिंगल मील। Hope this helps.
I can already tell you agree with him.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. Absolutely right. Yeah.
So breakfast, eat like a king. Breakfast should be like a king and dinner should be like a pauper, which our parents used to say does not apply.
So that, again, the whole agenda came from the US. In the US, one of the things that people need to realize is that whenever they have to sell something, they realize that you should not sell anything directly. You should first build a nice narrative around it. So came from there.
It's got to do with breakfast cereals largely.
Largely.
As I want, it'll come some way in whatever form it comes. So to compensate for that, you may end up eating two times a day, otherwise once a day. So now we've been saying this, and you should see the amount of argument we've had in the last 40 years with doctors and scientists telling us this will cause this problem, this will cause that problem, this will happen, that will happen. This is a diabetic person, how can he eat only twice? He must eat 10 times a day.
I mean, there's no fixed guideline as such. Some people prefer eating smaller amounts of food, which means that they can eat more frequently. Because if they don't eat frequently and they eat smaller amounts of food, they'll likely end up malnourished or underweight, right? So similarly, some people who are overweight and they love eating larger meals, they would do better if they're stuck to less number of meals to maintain their overall calories. So there's no real number to it. For example, I prefer having 2 meals in a day. My wife prefers 3 meals, including snacks. I think that goes up to 4 or 5. We are both fit and healthy. So there's no fixed number to it. As long as you can attach to it and as long as your routine keeps you healthy, and that's the best number.
Yeah. So Sadhguru saying this, Karan Johar saying that 1 meal a day, I'm on OMED.
Yeah, come on. We really have to listen to them. And see, again, I don't understand why we take one area of somebody's expertise and automatically extrapolate over to other areas. Like, is Sadhguru a nutrition expert? Is Karan Johar a nutrition expert? They're not. So I would love to hear Sadhguru about spirituality, even though I don't know what it means, and other stuff, because he does make a lot of sensible content, and he seems like a pretty smart person. And so is Karan Johar. Like, we grew up watching his movies, but does that mean that automatically that makes them experts on nutrition and training? Hardly.
Okay, point taken.
रोटी फैट लॉस में राइस से सुपीरियर है? लेट्स फाइंड आउट। यहाँ मैंने लिए 53.5 ग्राम रॉ राइस और 50 ग्राम आटा, और इन दोनों को कुक करने के बाद मुझे मिला 160 ग्राम कुक्ड राइस और 2 रोटी, और इन दोनों में एग्जैक्टली सेम 184 कैलोरीज। डिफरेंस क्या है? राइस में 3.7 ग्राम प्रोटीन और 42 ग्राम कार्ब्स है, और रोटी में 5.4 ग्राम प्रोटीन और 39 ग्राम कार्ब्स। और ये कोई बहुत बड़ा डिफरेंस नहीं है। डिफरेंस सिर्फ इतना है कि रोटी में 5.5 ग्राम कार्ब्स है और राइस में नहीं है। लेकिन इस रीजन से अगर आप सबको फैट लॉस में राइस खाने से मना कर रहे हो तो आप गधे हो, क्योंकि रियल लाइफ में आप अपनी प्लेट में सिर्फ राइस या रोटी लेके नहीं चबाते हो। आप प्रोटीन के लिए पनीर, सोया चंक्स, चिकन और फाइबर के लिए हरी सब्जियां या सैलेड भी ऐड करते हो। तो जब बैलेंस मील ले रहे हो तो राइस तो या रोटी मील धीरे धीरे ही डाइजेस्ट होगी। इसलिए अब कोई फैट लॉस में राइस खाने से मना करे तो उससे पूछो।
Very sensible video.
Very sensible.
Yeah, very sensible.
नमस्ते। हर 5 साल वेट लॉस इंडस्ट्री आपको एक नया डाइट बताती है और फिर हर कोई ये सोचता है कि उनके सारे मर्जों की दवा ये एक डाइट है। करंटली वो डाइट है एंटी इन्फ्लेमेशन डाइट। हर कोई ये कन्विंस हो चुका है कि उनके बॉडी में बहुत ज़्यादा इन्फ्लेमेशन है। तो भाई, पहला तो इन्फ्लेमेशन होता क्या है? इन्फ्लेमेशन इज नॉर्मल फॉर द बॉडी एंड इट इज़ अ प्रोसेस विच अलाउज द बॉडी टू हील एंड रिपेयर टिश्यूज। तो आपको चाहिए वो इन्फ्लेमेशन, लेकिन वो इन्फ्लेमेशन टाइम के साथ में घटना भी चाहिए। और उसे घटाने के लिए कोई एक मसीहा या एक फूड या एक डाइट आके उसको हटाता नहीं है। आपका पूरा जो लाइफस्टाइल है वो उसको हटाता है और वो ही उसको नियंत्रण में रखता है। मतलब ज़रूरत के टाइम पे इन्फ्लेमेशन, उसके बाद में दैट इन्फ्लेमेटरी रिस्पॉन्स सेटल्स डाउन। ओके, क्या है वो चीज़ें जो आपको करनी चाहिए ताकि ये सब कुछ बॉडी का सारा फंक्शनिंग नियंत्रण में रहे? नंबर 1, घर का खाना। घर पर ऐसी चीज़ें खाना जिसका नाम आपके लैंग्वेज में हो, उसे सही समय पर खाना और उसे टीवी, व्हाट्सएप और इंस्टाग्राम बंद करके खाना। ये सबसे पहली चीज़। नंबर 2, रेगुलरली एक्सरसाइज करना। कैसी वाली एक्सरसाइज? ऐसी वाली एक्सरसाइज जिससे कि आप रिकवर कर पाओ। ऐसा नहीं कि आज इतना एक्सरसाइज करूंगी कि नेक्स्ट 3 दिन में पतली लगूंगी, नेक्स्ट 3 दिन आप पतले नहीं लगोगे, नेक्स्ट 3 दिन आप बेड रेस्ट पे रहोगे। तो उतनी ही एक्सरसाइज करो जिससे कि आप रिकवर कर पाओ। नंबर 3, 40 में जवानी को पैदा मत करो। लेट नाइट्स आर हार्मफुल ओनली टू द बॉडी। वो टीनेज में, 20s में आपके बॉडी को उतना हानिकारक नहीं होती है जितना कि 40s में, 50s में और 60s में। तो स्लीप को प्रायोरिटाइज करो एंड दैट विल कीप यू सुखी एंड शांत। एंड लास्टली बट मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंटली, आजू बाजू का पब्लिक क्या कर रहा है, कौन सा डाइट कर रहा है, क्या बोल रहा है, इसके ऊपर ज़्यादा ध्यान मत दो, ताकि यू डोंट कीप फॉलिंग प्रे टू एवरी न्यू फैड इन टाउन। सी यू।
Yeah, you agree with this fad of anti-inflammation diet?
Yeah, I mean, see, because when people say anti-inflammatory diet, there's no one food that can increase or reduce inflammation. See, inflammation is in your body is in response to 3 different kinds of insults or stresses, which is your environmental or chemical stress, mental stress, or physical stress. And the body has a similar kind of anti-inflammatory response. So inflammation in the body is basically your body's first line of acknowledgement or defense. And so because of that inflammation, body starts fixing these things. So inflammation per se is not bad. It's the chronic inflammation over a period of time, which means that continuous exposure to pollution. So the problem is not the diet. The problem is pollution. Right? So there's no such thing called as an anti-inflammatory diet. Any diet that helps you reduce your inflammation levels is an anti-inflammatory diet. There's no one food.
But JC, I can tell you, I have so many people who would swear by these anti-inflammation diets. They've said this kachi haldi and adding black pepper and making a concoction. I think Neha Dhupia made that very popular, and Vidya Balan sort of set that tone on it. But they swear by it. They say they're feeling lighter and better having done that.
So I'll tell you what happens. So typically any of these anti-inflammatory diets are accompanied by severely caloric restricted diets. And this happens also in certain kinds of spas where you go there, you stay there, and they'll feed you like these soya, food and stuff. And you'll go from eating 3,000, 5,000 odd calories to, let's say, less than 1,000 calories. Of course, you're going to feel lighter and nicer, but you don't sustain it beyond 2 weeks, which is where the problem happens. So yeah, sure, you'll feel you think your turmeric latte and all these concoctions are making you feel lighter and better, but you completely underestimate that first you were eating so much of crap and now you're eating clean. So you just the fact that you're eating cleaner food and whole food and eating less food, that's the one that's making difference, not some turmeric and latte and all this.
Yeah, I want to segue from this for a minute because you said clean food, and this is a thing that keeps me, up at night. We are in a time where the real luxury is just knowing the source of your food. The real luxury is just knowing it was cooked in clean oil, in the right pan, knowing that it came from the right farm. I can't even trust an egg these days. So is there a filter? Is there any way of knowing that I'm eating clean food? And when I say clean, I'm doing everything. I don't have any quick delivery app on my phone. I've deleted all of those. We cook at home, we eat at home, we do whatever is happening. But even then, I don't know if the fruits and vegetables that are coming to me are clean. Like, what do we do?
I'll wash them. I mean, washing and cooking takes away most of the problems. So as long as you're washing them and cooking them, most of the problems will go away, except for some heavy metals and some residues like the AOZ, which comes from, the nitrofuran that we were talking about. Those are definitely bad because they don't get killed after boiling also. But again, the quantities are substantially small. But if that's happening at a much larger scale, then we have bigger problems at hand. So there's that. But again, look, now who's obsessing over food? You're talking about gadgets and, other things, but now you're hyper obsessing about food being clean. If you're eating at home, if your vegetables, you're cleaning them, if your food, you're cooking them, as long as it's not raw, you are going to be okay.
Relatively okay.
Relatively okay, yeah. Like I'm saying worrying about GMO is not going to add any more years to your life. Because that's a fact we live with. And honestly, the research is pretty straightforward. It does show, could have been funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So we don't know, right? But right now, whatever research is there, it says that GMO does not have any kind of adverse health effect. Yes.
So we shouldn't be worrying about our eggs having a certain chemical and our paneer being bad and our milk being adulterated.
We should. Look, adulteration is very different. Adulteration should be completely, it should be demonized, it should be talked about, it should be criticized. It is something that should be an issue that should be raised.
I think it is India's weakest point at the moment on nutrition.
So adulteration is definitely a problem. See, adulteration is not food. When you are adulterating milk with urea to increase the amount of protein in milk, that's not milk. You're not supposed to consume urea. If you're giving antibiotics to chicken and prohibited antibiotics to chicken in larger quantities, which end up having, ends up in our bodies, that's dangerous. That's not supposed to be, that's not food. That I have a problem with. For example, the recent controversy about the egg, that's not good. They should have done a batch testing. They should have done everything to ensure that nitrofurans are not found, the residues are not found in the eggs. They didn't do that. And rightly so, they faced the public backlash. So I'm saying those are the things that we have to, I think that we should have a body like what this guy, Arpit Mangal, Trustified, is doing. That should be done by a government body. I mean, I wish there was a way to support his initiatives, but the problem is when you do it privately, there's always going to be conflict of interest.
Correct.
Right. So this kind of responsibility cannot be let off on individuals. You have to have a government body which is free from any sort of incentive structures to lead these kind of things.
The two most popular doctors online.
What's your take on fruits?
Yeah.
And the sugar inside the fruit, is it good for your body or not from a nutrition standpoint?
Fruit sugars were created by evolution. I think the sugars that are put into our foods today are created by manufacturing man-made processes. The sugar that is added to an aerated beverage, to a fruit juice, to all the packaged foods that we have, that's the problem. Like, for example, I was on the flight yesterday and the so-called aam panna, which is mango juice, had 6 teaspoons of sugar in it. But if I make a mango juice, it has its natural sugar. I'm not putting another 6 teaspoons of sugar in that. The wrong is man-made packaged foods of fruit juices. The right is homemade fruit juices or eating fruits.
Well, he's not wrong. He's actually right.
Did you just give Dr. Pal and the gut doctor a compliment?
I mean, I'm fine with
Ryan also.
Yeah, Ryan I'm usually not very fine with. But look, again, I have to be honest here. And he's making sense here. So it's absolutely right. And the problem is not the sugar in the fruits. Yeah, it's correct.
He's right here. What do you mean by that?
Like I said, I never trust somebody 100%. It's a setting, right? So depending on what somebody says, I trust them for that thing and that thing alone. So this particular thing is evidence-backed, so he's right here.
I want you to rate on 1 to 10 what works, what does not work. We'll start with homeopathy.
I look, based on the current evidence, we don't have enough evidence to conclude that homeopathy works. I'm not saying it. I'm just saying based on the current evidence.
Okay. Ayurveda.
Same.
Yoga.
It works for posture, improved flexibility, improved balance. Yoga has some evidence.
Some evidence.
Yes.
But it's not enough.
It's movement. Yoga is movement, it's balance, it's flexibility too, alone just based on those things. And yoga is like a full spectrum, right? So if you complete the end spectrum, you also get into the side of strength. And, so that's pretty good. So yoga actually encompasses all of these spectrum, but most of the people, they stick to 1 or 2 poses on a regular basis, which is very elementary. So it depends. I would say yoga can be a complete workout because advanced yoga is similar to calisthenics, actually.
Okay. What about intermittent fasting?
Sure. It's a good way to manage your calories. Yeah.
Okay. What about plant-based diets?
Sure.
Thumbs up. Over.
Yeah. Not vegan diets, but yeah, largely plant-based diets can also be where you have most of your calories coming from plant-based sources and less of meat-based sources. So in general, what we have seen, we're not doing a neck-to-neck with animal versus plant-based. I'm saying in general, having more fruits and vegetables in your diet, it's a differentiator factor.
Okay. And since this is doctor versus internet, you are not the doctor. You typically come from the internet, wouldn't you say? Yeah. How much would you rate doctors these days versus internet advice these days?
Well, if you're sick, go to a doctor. If you're not sick, then take doctor's advice with a pinch of salt because they're not trained in advising people how not to get sick. I mean, they don't read or learn about nutrition, muscle physiology. behavioral sciences. They don't understand the food relationship, right? So if you find someone on the internet who can advise you on these things better, because please understand that there's no college in India. Even outside, it's very difficult to find colleges that combine these disciplines together. And so even when I was learning this, I did not know all of these things which I know now. So if I were to create, let's say, a college or university, it will have a holistic curriculum which will integrate all of this and more. Yes. And then we do have INFS, but it's not like a full-fledged university, but one day.
One day? You're manifesting that for 2026?
Like one day, not 1 year.
1 day. Okay. Wellness clinics. Take.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're doing in the wellness clinics. If it's IVs, they are not regulated. But if you're taking those cryotherapies and saunas, like your biohacking bros, I mean, they are better than going to bars. So there's that.
On that lovely note, Mr. Jitendra Chouksey, JC as they say it, thank you so much for being here, for taking out the time, for skipping breakfast, and for just being your unapologetic self.
Thank you so much. Thank you.